if you get rid of the whole drug war situation, you're still going to have issues with violence endemic to that community.
Mm-hmm.
Still tribal.
The idea that
are you sure? Are you sure? I thought they were just forced into being violent drug dealers because the white man wouldn't let them advance into any other business activity. Are you sure, Alex?
they can't be entrepreneurs in the cocaine.
Yeah.
Well,
they would be outsmarted so quickly.
Well, one of the most interesting things is that there's this disconnect in people's brains between, because they look at the drug war and then they look at the incarceration rate since the start of the drug war, and they're like, okay, well, this is terrible. Look at what's happening. And I guess if you didn't know anything, you would think, oh, this is awful. Look, they're just these people, because I smoke weed. You know, this is the average drug war opponent, white person's view.
Yeah.
I smoke weed and I'm a good person. I don't do anything bad. I don't hurt people. And, so it's terrible. Why are people going to jail for drugs? You know, and I've even done other drugs a few times, harder drugs, and I'm still a good person. And so this is how they look at it. And then it's like, yeah, but you don't also then they're also like, but there's this drop in crime in the US in the last several decades, and we just don't know why. And it's like, oh my God, fucking put two and two together. Like, this is the drug war gave the excuse to put the most aggressive blacks in jail, and that made crime drop. Okay. And we also see the issue with Chicago. I mean, we're talking about Chicago. Chicago is 800 murders last year. Okay. 800 murders last year. I believe it was more than New York City and Philadelphia combined or something like that. Or like New York City and some other city, probably any other big city really combined. And I actually read an article on this a few months ago. I can't remember what. I think it might have even been in New York Magazine of all fucking things, total shit-lib Jewish rag. But where they were talking about how Ray Kelly, the former police commissioner who was, a protege of Rudy Giuliani, had this kind of he was continuing under Mayor Bloomberg, kind of like these no nonsense policing tactics that Giuliani had put in place. And I've always said Giuliani's a total cuck when it comes to politics, but when it comes to law enforcement, he's good.
No, you know what to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So so these things included mandatory minimums, 3 strike laws, stop and frisk, and enforcement of broken window policies. So when you pick up the black that jumps the subway turnstile,
yeah,
you're also picking up a black that's going to end up shooting somebody.
Right.
And, it's sort of like, oh, well, that's pre-crime. That's you're arresting them for things that they didn't do. It's like, no. What we're doing is we're weeding out of the population the most aggressive elements by picking people up for small infractions. Because if you look, the thought goes, and the thing is, people that study criminal justice, we have a guy in our group who was a criminal justice major, and he was talking about all this stuff. He's like, this is known. He's like, I've written papers on it. I've submitted them. I've gotten A's on them at criminal justice school. And the Department of Justice is well aware of this. Law enforcement is well aware of this. And they can't do anything. Because when you get a fucking liberal commie mayor like Bill de Blasio, he's just going to hamstring the police department. He's going to say, you can't do that stuff because it's racist. And every cop knows, okay, well, we know what's going to happen. We know what comes next. We know what happens next, and that is that the crime is going to go up.
Could you just imagine if we were actually realistic about all this and lived in a country where we could deal with the problem? How easily it'd be we'd fix it so easy overnight.
We used that actually. When you look at the United States and you look at sort of the history of the United States and you look at who's writing the history of the United States, and then you read between the lines. Like, we used to live in that country. Okay, and it wasn't even that long ago that we lived in that country where there was the narrative, and the narrative ruled sort of the popular consciousness. It ruled the what people thought, what people looked at. But then you had law enforcement that was sort of behind the scenes, just doing what it needed to do. And it wasn't until, I would say the last 20 years that they actually just started, like, for ideological reasons, governments started actually hamstringing their own law enforcement, because it used to be like the cops go out and do what they need to do. It's dirty, it's ugly, and they don't get any appreciation for it. But and then every shit tier like liberal white person gets to spout off on how evil they are, and it's they should have their teeth kicked in for that shit. But like it used to be like that, and now it's not like that anymore, because the ideology is just too all pervasive that it's falling apart. And that's what Black Lives Matter is. I mean, Black Lives Matter can only happen in a situation where Whitey has stopped having the will to enforce the law.
Yep.
Yeah. What if we just extradited the Negro problem? Think
about California. Think about California, and think about how cucked that state is, and think about how liberal and how Jewish it is. And then you had Mark Furman is in charge of the LAPD. Well, he was a captain, I believe. I think he wasn't in charge. He was a captain in the LAPD, something like that. And the guy is like, you listen to the Mark Furman tapes, and it's like, okay, all right, this guy, he gets what's going on, right? So he's keeping all these fucking wealthy liberal fucks in Jews in Hollywood and LA. He's keeping them safe from the criminal element there, the black and Hispanic criminal element, and he knows damn well what he's doing, and he gets no fucking appreciation. And when they find out, they fucking throw him under the bus. I'm like, fuck this. So yeah, Mark Furman did nothing wrong. Nothing.